Okay, hey guys. This is a talk, thoughts and opinions about the latest absolute stacked UFC card, UFC 249. Um, let's check. When's it happening again? May 9th, it says here. I think. I think it's May 9th. I've only just, ever since this whole COVID-19 business has been going on, I haven't paid much attention to the UFC because I assumed everything's being cancelled. But I'm very happy and excited to say that it's going along, and I'm going to go through the card with you from the early prelims to the big main event. And man, this is the most stacked card we might ever see. Um, just because we've got to cram so many fights in now. I mean, you look at the prelims. I mean, you look at the early prelims, and there's an argument that that could be like a main card for like a UFC fight night or whatnot. So I'm really excited for this card. Really excited. Now I'm not the biggest. I'd say I'm a big UFC fan, but I'm quite new to it. So I don't know every single like fighter. When I say new to it, I mean a few years. So maybe I should know all the fighters, but there's some fighters I won't know. The first two fights, I don't know any of the fighters, which is probably sacrilege to a lot of fight fans out there. Ryan Spann facing Sam Alvey in the light heavyweight division. I don't know either of these fighters, so I can't give my opinion on it. As well as Bryce Mitchell and Charles Rosa. Now, the rest I sort of have a slight idea. And then when we got onto the main card, that's when I start knowing people a little bit more. So those are the first two fights in the early prelim. So I'm excited for that, just to see some new talent that I don't know about. It's always exciting for me to see a fighter or a fight between two fighters I don't know. Because I remember the first time watching Brian Ortega before he came to fame in the lightweight division. Is it lightweight? Featherweight? Featherweight, is it? The one with Max Holloway in. That's featherweight, I think. Or it might be. It's the one below lightweight. I'm getting my weights mixed up. Silly me. Anyway. Um, yeah. So, uh, I watched him when it was like, he was undefeated at the time still, of course. He was undefeated until he fought Max Holloway. And he just looked badass. He looked mint. And I was like, this kid he has a future. And then when you found out he could strike later on, it was like, Jesus Christ, he's a full package. He's gonna be dangerous for anyone. But you know, when you mess with the blessed, you know what's gonna happen. You might get knocked out. And it happens to the best of them. You know, he's one of the best of all time, especially in the featherweight division. I'm going to say featherweight because that's what I think it is. I could be wrong. Right, anyway, early prelims. So, like I said, Ryan Spann, Sam Alvey, light heavyweight, featherweight, Bryce Mitchell, Charles Rosa. Then we go to the welterweight division. We've got Vincente Luque versus Nico Price. I believe Nico Price is coming off a loss, and Vincente Luque, I I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain he's coming off a win. Actually, no. I was going to say he's coming off a win, but he was off weight. But I think I'm mixing him up with another Brazilian. But both these fighters are great. Nico Price is wild. He's a wild man. You never know what you're going to expect of him in the cage. He's going to throw shit that's going to surprise some people. He's pretty unorthodox. I like him. I like his personality. Do I think he's got enough to beat Vincente? Through current fight form, It's tough. It's very tough. I'm gonna give the edge to Vincente Luque. I feel he's got more of an all round game, and I think he could. I think he's just a. I think he's quality, Vincente. I think he's just a really good striker. His kicks are just, they sting. You could tell. You could tell they sting. But yeah, that's what I think. I think Vincente will win against Nico Price, but it's such a close fight. I wouldn't want to put my money on any of them because any surprise could happen. Then this is what's mad. We move to the prelims. The first fight of the prelims, Uriah Hall versus Jacare. Oh dear. Right. Jacare. I'm gonna pick Jacare for this fight. I just think he's a bad man. I think Uriah Hall's very good. I think that's the difference. I think Uriah Hall's very good, but I think Jacare is a bad man, and I truly believe, despite his age, he could go for the middleweight. He could challenge for the middleweight title. I don't know if Uriah Hall has that in him anymore. He possibly could. But Jacare, I think he could genuinely win the welterweight title with his skill set. I think Jacare will win. Carla Esparza versus Michelle Waterston. That's a very good fight. The Cookie Monster. I don't know much about Michelle Waterston. I know the name. I can't quite put a fight in my head. Carla is one of these fighters that you know of, but doesn't win every fight. But she might face a relatively unknown and beat them, and then sort of push herself back up into the card. She'll never beat a Cyborg, even though she's not in the UFC anymore, or a Amanda Nunes, or a Joanna, or so this fight, just simply because I know more about Carla Esparza, I'm gonna give it to Carla. Although I do know the name Michelle Waterson, and every time I see Carla Esparza fight someone who I do know of, she tends to lose. That's completely like such a random thing to say, but yeah, that's what I think's gonna happen. But I know fuck all about that fight. This fight though, I'm very interested in. Alexei Oleinik versus Fabricio Verdum. Where do we begin? So Fabricio Verdum, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. He was the one that gave Fyodor his first loss. And he was just the greatest heavyweight in the world for a long time until Stipe came along. And then he lost to Stipe, and then he kept winning, and then he lost to that big fucker, didn't he? Is it Volkov? Is that his name? I think so. In London, I think he lost. Yeah. He's fighting Oleinik. Both these guys are good on the ground. They both got great submission ground game. But I just think I think Fabricio will win. I think Fabricio is the better fighter, standing and on the ground. He's just great. I mean, I remember. I mean, I don't want to speak too much shit about him because obviously it's not quite new anymore, but what happened to Walt Harris and his family, I wish the best for him and his family, but we see the rise that Walt Harris has had recently, where he's just been knocking motherfuckers out, and he's been just a big bad motherfucker, and you do not want to go in the cage with him. Fabricio Verdum came in last minute, and he made him look amateur. He just made him look amateur. He took him to the ground and he tapped him with no struggle. That's the quality he has. It was over. I could say under 10 seconds, but I could be wrong. Could be something like 15 or whatever, but it wasn't long at all. I remember that. Um, Next up, so yeah, Fabricio Verdun for that one in the heavyweight division. Next up, welterweight division. Now this one, Cowboy Showtime Pettis. Showtime. He had a win not recently. He had a win, and then he faced Tony Ferguson, and I think he faced someone else after that, and he's had a couple losses. Cowboys coming off a loss as well, of course, to Conor McGregor in that infamous return fight where Conor sort of got a bit of his hype back. I'm going to give it to Cowboy. I think his form's been better than Pettis. I think Pettis has the skill set to win this fight. Definitely, he can definitely win this fight, but he has to be Showtime. He can't be this what we've seen Anthony Pettis recently, which seems like a shadow of his former self. I don't know what it is that he's not doing to be the most baddest man in the welterweight division that he's been before in the lightweight division. Was he lightweight? I think he was. I could be wrong, but I think he was in lightweight. But anyway, Anthony Pettis on his day was back in the day was one of the best. But Cowboy has he can lose a few in a row and then gain his momentum back any time. He's done that his entire career. I remember he had this amazing fight with Robbie Lawler, and then I think he fought Darren Till after that. So you don't want to lose to Robbie Lawler and then lose to Darren Till after that when he got battered by Darren. And then he went back, and I think he had this great winning streak where he just beat a bunch of people. And then he'll lose one, and then he'll gain a winning streak. So I don't think him coming off a loss deters him much. I think he's just a gunslinging cowboy. A loss don't bring him down. But that last loss against Conor was the chance. But I think he'll want to get back in there, and he'll want to smack motherfuckers around just to say, hey, I may have lost my last fight. I'm still cowboy. I'm still one of the baddest men on the planet. I think Cowboy will win. How do I think he'll win? He can win any way he wants. Floor, standing. I think he'll knock him out. I think he'll TKO Pettis. TKO Pettis, round number 2. How about that? Now we go to the main card. So Cowboy versus Pettis welterweight division was the main event of the prelims, which could be the main event of a real card, you'd like to think. We have Greg Hardy versus Jorgen De Castro. And speaking of the fight with Verdum earlier, Verdum, who lost to that Russian gentleman whose name I can't think of, I can't remember. I want to say Volkov. That name rings a bell. But he fought... Greg Hardy just recently fought Volkov, and he lost. So that was his first big test in the heavyweight division, and yeah, I'm not throwing any shade to Dana White or Sean Shelby, whoever's booking the fight. I think it might have been a bit early to put him in against him. We know how dangerous he can be, and he is still very much new to the fight game. But to be fair, he was winning. But I think it was a warning sign, because you see the mistakes he made, like when he took his asthma pump, when he kicked someone on the ground, just silly, stupid mistakes that a professional wouldn't make. Greg Hardy makes, so he's obviously not used to it. So facing a big fight like Volkov, he was always gonna be trouble for him. I thought when I saw that, I was like, I don't know. I think it's a bit early for him. He hasn't fought long, so he's still got so long on the fight game. But he's facing Jorgen De Castro. I don't know much about Jorgen. So I'm going to say Greg Hardy to win. But for all I know, Jorgen de Castro could be this like bad motherfucker in the heavyweight division that's knocking motherfuckers out, and I don't know. I'm gonna say Greg Hardy because he's the one I know in the heavyweight division. Next up, Jeremy Stephens, Calvin Kattar. Oh my god, that is interesting. Is Jeremy Stephens coming off a loss? Is he? I'm trying to think. I think he is. But Jeremy Stephens is still dangerous to most people in the featherweight division. Calvin Kattar's bad, man. Joe Rogan himself calls him the dark horse of the featherweight division. I think he called him that. If not, I definitely remember him saying how dangerous he is. And if I'm going to trust anybody, Joe Rogan will definitely be one of those people. But Jeremy Stephens is also dangerous. I'm going to give it to Calvin Kattar, though. Kattar. I do not know. But what I do know is he is dangerous and he is great. I do remember seeing his last fight. He was fantastic. I'm going to give it to Calvin. But Jeremy could easily win this fight. Now the main three, which I'm most excited about. I mean, the first fight here, right, let's just get into it. Heavyweight division. Francis Ngannou versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. The battle of the two bombers. The battle of the... That's not a racist. That sounded really bad. Because they have bombs in their gloves, when they hit you, you go to fucking sleep. Okay? We all know about Francis Ngannou. He's been knocking motherfuckers out for a while now. He's beat top heavyweight contender Curtis Blades twice. The only loss he's had is to Stipe, which, to be fair, Stipe dominated him, but ever since then he had that one. Actually, no, he had that one fight after against Derek Lewis where I believe both of them were injured, and also Francis admitted himself he was a bit scared in that fight. Since the last fight against before that against Stipe, he's been scared. He was scared about fighting. About making a mistake, making himself look silly, and that made him look silly in the first place. In one of the most anticipated fights at the time, turned out to be one of the most boring, which was a massive shame. But you know, he's back. He comes back. He fucks up Curtis Blade. People are Curtis. You know, he had such a tough time against Stipe's wrestling. What's Curtis going to do to him in a rematch without his confidence? He had his confidence back, and he just knocked him out easy, clean. Didn't bother him. And then he fought the Reem, didn't he? He fought the Reem, and he obviously had that famous uppercut knockout where Overeem just stiffened like a board, and his toes were curled, but he was unconscious. One of those scary knockouts that you'd be so scared to see anyone receive. I remember watching that and thinking, fucking hell, we might have just seen the first death in the UFC, or when I was watching that live. Thank goodness that Alistair's okay, and his opponent did a number on him as well, which I'll discuss in a second. Then after that, he fought one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, the man who oh wait, who did he fight first? Actually, I'm gonna say JDS. He fought first, but it could be the other way around. I think it is JDS. He fought, and then the guy I'm going to speak about after. But anyway, actually not. I'm going to say them both together. These two people had the greatest rivalries in the heavyweight division, one of the greatest. JDS and Cain Velasquez. And with JDS, them two had basically a boxing match. It was like, JDS is one of the best pure boxers in the UFC. Like his accuracy, his movement, his power is all fantastic, and Francis just pushed him aside. I think they were just striking like bat bat, and then Francis hit him, and then I think he turned his back to him, and Francis was behind him, and I think he hooked him in the back of the in the side, not the back of the head, that's illegal. I think in the side of the head, and then he dropped, and then he just pummeled on him on the ground. And he won that fight. That was pretty scary. Actually, no, I think he fought Kane first, because I think it was like, oh, Kane, because the Kane fight, the Kane Velasquez fight was pretty controversial. And I think the JDS fight was like, oh, you know, the last fight against Kane was controversial, but then he just no doubt about it, just smashed JDS. But Kane Velasquez, his comeback was like the biggest thing in MMA. It was like, oh, Kane's back, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. He came back. They had a bit of a striking exchange, and the thing that Kane says happened is that I think he tore his knee. He tore something in his knee, or he broke something in his knee. He stepped wrong and he fell. But after that, what it looked like is that he uppercutted him and he went to sleep. And then he finished him. That's what it looked like at the time. And I remember Dominic Cruz was on commentary. And at the moment, it seemed really fucking like... It seemed like one of my favourite calls of all time, but it ended up not being because of what happened afterwards, and I don't technically agree with the with the call as such at the time. But he just when he finished him, you just heard Dominic Cruz go, "Oh my god," and it was almost like fear. If I see a heavyweight great, an all-time great in the heavyweight division, get knocked out in like 30 seconds, and you see fear in the commentary tables voices, oh my god, when it's like a tragedy's just happened, that is something that sends shivers down the people's spine, and they go, whoa, Francis Ngannou, Jesus Christ. But what ended up happening was, he was like, oh my god. And what happened was, he was saying, because of the thing with his knee, he noticed something went wrong in his knee, and he said that's the reason he fell. I don't think that's true. I think he definitely hurt his knee, but I think he hurt his knee noticed he hurt his knee in that split second, then Francis knocked him out, and then he kept hitting him. But according to Kane, he didn't get knocked out. He just tore his knee, and then he was getting hit on the ground. But but being knocked out is such a dangerous thing. When you get knocked out, you don't know what happens. It's brain damage. To forcefully shut someone's lights off like that, and then you're not thinking anymore. You could be like, I could be here right now, and then I could be like outside, because something could fall, I could be knocked out, and then someone could drag me outside or whatever. Like it could be that type of effect, and I could be like, well, I didn't knock out. I don't know why. How did I get out here? It's one of those things where it's so fucked, being knocked out. But I think what happened was, he hurt his knee and he got knocked out. I think the hurt in the knee gave Ngannou the split second to uppercut him. But I think Francis was dominating the fight anyway. Up to that, he was setting everything up. I think it was unfortunate for Kane, but Francis, man, this has become the Francis show. 24 minutes in, but just know that he had a bad loss and a bad fight after that, but now he's back. Francis the Monster Ngannou, the whoop whoop hype train of the fucking of the beast. Francis Ngannou is back, and he's got a new challenger who hits pretty fucking hard. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, he's been knocking people out for fun. he's had a. I don't know if he's undefeated or not, but he's been undefeated for a while, in terms of he's not lost in a while. And he recently fought, like I mentioned earlier, going back to it, Alistair over him, and he knocked him out. And it was interesting because Overeem was winning the fight, and this fight might not have happened, but he was winning the fight. He was fighting smart because that's what Alice is doing. He's not Ubereem anymore. he's not Juiced McObereem. So he's not going to be knocking motherfuckers out and having just so many muscles on his face that he's just going to absorb everything. You know, he's just catching up to him. He's got unfortunately the Vitor Belfort unfortunate situation, but now he's fighting smart in the UFC, and he's starting that technique is starting to do well for him. But he fought Rosenstruck, he was doing well for rounds upon rounds upon round, and then all of a sudden, in the last round, towards the end of the last round of the fight, Rosenstruck knocks him out in one punch, similar to the boxing match between Deontay Wilder and Tito Ortiz. Not Tito Ortiz. Tito Ortiz, no. What's the who's the Cuban fighter he fought? He fought this Cuban fighter and he punched him in the forehead, which he doesn't usually knock people out. It can stun them, but it doesn't knock people out. But he's so powerful, he knocked him out, and sweat just bursted off of his head. He fought Ortiz, and Ortiz from Cuba, and he's like one of the baddest motherfuckers in the heavyweight division of boxing. And he brought him to his closest fight before that, and he brought him to a close fight after that, but then he knocked him out. He was being dominated throughout the entire fight, and then he just knocks him out in one punch. And that is that is the advertisement I bring for this fight. Francis, Rosenstruck, both these people have the power to end the fight in one punch. That's why it's so hard to call it. If I'm a betting man, I'm putting my money on Francis because I think he's got a better technique as a boxer. But Rosenstruck, man, he can end somebody's lights in one punch. He has that power, and so does Francis. So who do you give this fight to? You give this fight to whoever I think has better technique, in my opinion. So I'll give it to Francis, but I wouldn't put my money on it. That's all I'm saying. Next, Henry Cejudo is facing against the man who I was talking about earlier on commentary, Dominick Cruz. Now, we haven't seen Dominick Cruz since his loss to Cody Garbrandt, when Cody had one of the best performances of his life before he just wasted all his fights. He fought Cody Garbrandt. He beat him. Looked the bad man in that division. Put TJ on Wobbly Street. Got a bit too emotionally involved in that fight. Gets knocked out. Does the same thing against Dillashaw the fight after that, and then he fights another guy where the other guy pisses him off, and then they get into basically a swinging match like that. And then Garbrandt just lost because he's got a weak chin. Unfortunately for him, he's great, but his chin's just not there anymore. So it doesn't look good on Dominick Cruz, but I think Dominick's still a bad man, and you can't call this. Henry Cejudo, of course, the man who's been undefeated since his fight with Mighty Mouse, Demetrius Johnson. He gave him his last fight in the UFC, beat him. Although that fight could have been anyone's decision. You could have gave it to Demetrius, you could have gave it to Henry. But, you know, Demetrius Johnson was arguably the greatest fighter in the world at that point, in like the pound for pound greatest. And if you take the pound for pound greatest and you make it to a decision where it's like, oh, I don't know who could have won, you're special anyway. Especially when they're fighting to the best of their abilities, which I think Mighty Mouse definitely was. Henry Cejudo is one of the best fighters in the bantamweight division, but Dominic Cruz is one of the best of all time. Does he still have it in him to beat Cejudo? Personally, I think he does, but I think Henry does get it done. I think Henry wrestles him. I think he just dominates him on the ground. I think if he does, Dominic has to look for a submission any way he can. But I'm just going to give it to Henry because I think his form has just been incredible. Dominic Cruz coming back to fight Henry Cejudo in his first fight is dangerous for him. But Dominic's capable of anything. He's one of the smartest. Despite what I said earlier, he did notice the knee, which I didn't at the time. I just disagreed with, at the time, the thing of that's the reason he lost was just the knee. I think he got knocked out then the knee. He's definitely the smartest of all time. He noticed things that other people don't, and he'll be like, right, watch this, watch what he's going to do next, and then he'll go and do it because he knows he's got a genius fight IQ, so he has the capability to beat anyone in the division. But Henry Cejudo is just quality. Gold medalist, Olympic wrestler. I think, is he 2-weight division champion? 2-weight division champion. He's a bit cringy. But that's his thing. That's his thing. It's like Colby Covington. You're gonna talk shit about Colby Covington. He's a bastard. He's this. Motherfucker. He's playing a character. We all know he's playing a character, and we all know Henry Cejudo is playing that character as well. They're both bad men, and I think Henry Cejudo wins. And then we go to the main event, the possible end to the Tony Ferguson Khabib rivalry without Khabib even fighting. If Gaethje wins. Now we all know the favourite is Tony Ferguson. But I believe Justin Gaethje is going to lose. I'm sorry, he's going to lose, in my opinion. He could win, like I've said for many of these people. He could definitely win. He could make me look stupid, but Tony Ferguson right now is one of the best fighters in the world. Justin Gaethje has got 3 rounds in him, I think. 3 solid rounds of hellfire and brimstone, but Tony Ferguson can weather that storm, and he can bring it to him as well, and he can go for 5 rounds. Tony Ferguson's a freak of nature in terms of his stamina and his work rate. He can work someone for 5 rounds solid and not get tired. I mean, there's 3 stories of him running Big Bear, which is a high altitude, massive area where people go to train. It's really hot, and he will just lap people, and this is crazy Mexican genetics that have this crazy stamina and this crazy work rate. But he can work so good against Gaethje. Pardon me, Gaethje. He's a great wrestler, but he doesn't wrestle people. He wants to give the fans a show. He wants to hurt people, and he wants to be the show reel. He wants to be the show reel, and I think if Gaethje, I think what Gaethje needs to do to win, in my opinion, is give. He's gonna have to hurt him early. He's gonna have to hurt Tony early. Get the respect early. He's gonna need to he's going to have to make Tony second guess, which I don't think Tony will do, because Tony's crazy in the octagon. He doesn't give a fuck. The way I can describe Tony Ferguson's style is, oh, you did this to me, oh cool bro, let me just return something back, like twicefold, which is something Brendan Shaw would definitely say. The oh cool bro, and then da da da. But that's just basically how I describe Tony Ferguson. He's crazy in the octagon. He will do shit that stuns people. He's incredible on the feet. He's one of the best off his back. He will submit people off his back. He will hurt people off his back. That's why the fight against Khabib was so interesting, and that's why, fingers crossed, one day we get that fight. Fucking Khabib had to go back to Russia. Why, Khabib? Why did you have to go back to Russia? I don't know. I don't know much about it, but I know he has to stay in Russia. And it wasn't his choice. That was the government telling him he had to do that. But anyway, we have a fantastic fight here. Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje. But I'm going to give it to Tony Ferguson to beat Justin Gaethje and become the two-time, say it again, 2-time UFC lightweight interim champion, baby. He ain't lost his title, baby. He ain't lost that interim belt, baby. And he's gonna have to fight Khabib one day. That's the hope. That he wins it and he has to fight Khabib one day. But yeah, this is the most exciting fight card in a while. It's a shame that there's going to be no fans in the arena to react to the moments. It's going to be similar to if you've watched The Ultimate Fighter or the Contender Series. That's what it's going to be like. No fans, and you're gonna. But what's going to be interesting, I think, and what people are not going to realise is you're going to hear the corner very clearly, and I think I'm really interested to see what it's like, because it might be difficult for one corner to hear the other corner when there's a massive when there's screaming fans in the arena, but you're going to hear everything. You're going to hear, oh, kick him in the leg, take him down, and the other side's going to definitely hear them, because there's going to be no audience. And I think it's going to be interesting for the people like me watching at home to see, oh, this is what they're saying, and it's going to be so clear to hear what the corners have to say to their fighters. It's crazy. Of course, I would have preferred fans to be there. It's what makes the fights, in my opinion. It's what makes the fights what they are. The crowd. But you can definitely have. I'd rather see a UFC fight with no fans than a WWE match with no fans, because that while WWE matches is fully dependent on the fans, in my opinion, which is why I can't watch WWE without the fans right now. UFC, you can do it without, because the drama is in the fight. It's in the fight, and I think we're in for a fantastic night of fights. Thank you, Dana White. Thank you, Sean Shelby. Thank you to the entire UFC booking team for trying your hardest to set this fight up. For everything you're doing for the fans, because I don't think you get enough appreciation for people when these fights aren't being. You could easily just go, oh, we can't right now, we can't put fights together. That's it. You're trying everything to get a fight for these fans, the fans that give everything, to give their livelihoods, take sacrifices. To pay to watch your fights. You give the fans your everything, and for that, thank you to everyone in the UFC, especially the booking team, especially Dana White. Thank you for everything you do for us, and for the fighters, for giving them the chance, giving them the ability to earn for their livelihoods, for their families. Um, you know, thank you for for trying. Is the main message, for never giving up, and fingers crossed.